Okay, everyone, good morning. Today is Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. The time is 9:01 a.m. This is a special meeting. It's actually our monthly elected officials meeting. Attending for the Board of County Commissioners are Commissioners Duncan and Fillios. Commissioner Bill Brooks is on vacation. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. We only have a couple of business items. First one is to approve the market groups for the wage study, and it's a potential action item. Leslie or
Sure.
is Sylvia?
I think Sylvia's got some handouts.
Dorothy's going to hand out the results of an email I sent to the electeds.
I'm sorry?
Oh, no, it isn't. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. All right. So what Dorothy is distributing to all of you is the results of the market survey location suggestions from the elected officials. And so what I've done is listed the entities within the region that they are based on our work with the Maribin that we will be doing. In parentheses, you will find the population for those cities, and counties that were suggested from all of you. And so what I found is some of the elected officials recommended just specific locations, and we had several that recommended the full regions, which I think is really great as well. So today our goal is to finalize the locations that we're going to compare our salaries to, and then get BOCC approval. So as we move through this process of determining our final market locations, some factors that we need to keep in mind is, for the market study, is we want a good mix of cities and counties so that we can get sufficient data for comparison purposes. So in order to be in the market study, we need 3 matches of our jobs. If we don't get 3 matches, it won't be on our survey results. So that's why we need a good sampling of organizations to compare to. So do you want to know who the 2019 market locations were that we used, the agencies, or you don't need that information?
Is it relevant?
No,
Okay.
not really.
That's fine
Okay.
then. We can just go on, yeah.
All right, okay. So really, now I open it up to discussion to all of us to finalize this list. And, you know, Dorothy and I are here. Once we make that decision, we'll put it out. We'll just confirm with all of you, these are our locations, and then we move forward with our agreement with the Maribin. We'll start our work with them October 1st. It'll take Maribin about 2 months to gather the data and produce some reports for us, and then we can start reporting back to the elected officials group with the results that we're seeing.
So remind us again, we can pick all 7 regions and then 5. We can pick all 7 regions and then 5 additional locations.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yes, so in all of your regions, they're all listed there, so we can use all of them, regions 1 through 7. And then from the elected officials, are locations that you guys identified as potential market comparison to use. So we could pick any of those 5, none of them, different 5 entities, or we don't have to pick any other organizations except what's in those regions if you'd like.
What is the danger of picking too many?
You know, I don't see it. I mean, it's data. If we have a good sampling, what would be a benefit is, in the past we've used the average because we don't have a lot of data. If we get enough data for all our positions, we could use the median.
Okay.
So theoretically, you could go with everything here.
You could.
Okay.
Except on the other, we would need to just limit that to 5.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Sylvia,
Yes.
do you have a recommendation what it should be?
In terms of locations?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we do, actually.
Go ahead.
We believe Region 1, 3, and 7 would be excellent for our study. And part of that is because it gives us a good sampling of big and average and small. It does tie in the other, well, we're in the top 5 of largest counties in Idaho. So it does pull in all of that, being Ada, Canyon, ourselves, which they don't calculate in the study, they don't calculate our salaries in the average. They'll show it at the end, and then they do the comparison of the average or the median to what we're paying. And then Bonneville and Canyon County. We also thought about Region 4, right?
Well, Region 4 was one that was, part of Region 4 was suggested last time. So that's why we could certainly put it in there.
We would have to do 6 too.
Yeah,
Uh,
6.
And 6, because 6 would have Bonneville. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 4 has Jerome and Twin Falls.
Yes. Blaine was recommended, and I don't know, I'm not real familiar with that area. I believe it's the Sun Valley area and
It's-
high cost of living.
Yeah, highest property
housing.
values in the state.
Yeah, so
Highest
that
income,
was
so.
suggested by a couple of individuals had recommended that. But for sure, I'm thinking 1, 3, 6, and 7. And then if we want to pick some of the other entities, that I think we should use Spokane Valley,
Yeah, definitely.
definitely. And open to the rest.
I would say that, to me, actually Tacoma makes sense, and it's not on here, but Snohomish County.
Oh.
Because if you look at what our housing costs are right now and what our rent rates are right now, they compare to those areas, which would not have been the case a year or two ago. But it costs as much to live here as it costs to live there right now.
Your thing, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's a good point, because, you know, there are different criteria that can be selected. One can be comparable cost of living. The other one could be, who do we lose people to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, we rarely, if ever, lose people to Seattle.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, it might be factors, outside the job. It could be family or things of that nature. Pocatello, hardly. Blaine, hardly. But if there are other reasons to include them under another set of criteria, as Jill just pointed out. So if you want to take housing cost or cost of living, and then you also want to add to that, where do we lose people to? So now between those two, you've run that's a pretty wide breadth.
And where do you recruit for your talent? And, you know, we get a lot of our individuals from the California area, but I was truly surprised that wasn't recommended in terms of other locations to be considered. And last time we used state of Washington and state of Idaho, and that did not come up this time,
Too big.
so.
I would recommend Spokane Valley,
We got it.
Yeah.
It's in there. Yep.
Yep.
and a cost of living factor.
Yep.
Why Moscow? Moscow is there.
Moscow.
I don't know. Some of these are irrelevant.
I did ask Ameriban with some of our partners, organizations that they've used in the past, and they use larger cities and counties within Idaho and eastern Washington. So Coeur d'Alene, Sandpoint, Post Falls, Spokane
Okay.
Valley, Spokane County, Moscow, Lewiston, Bonner, and Nez Perce is who she's seen some commonality of what our partners around us have used. And Bob, to your recommendation, I think those entities are great, but if you look at it, like, we need county data to get matches, and if we just limit us to 3 organizations, we won't. We would get one market data for our detention deputies and a lot of just county-type positions. So that doesn't give us enough of a comparable, and I don't know if Maribin would include it on their survey data.
How do they factor in cost of living?
That's one of the studies that we've asked them to do, is a cost of living and a cost of labor analysis. But I'm not sure how that'll tie in the end result, so we need to make sure she understands what we're going through. Michelle from Maribin, and Dorothy, please, if you've got anything you want to add, please do. We'll work with her to really make sure that we look at that, because I know that is a key factor we're being affected by, is we can potentially get a candidate to want to come here, and then they start looking at the housing market and the cost of living, and they're like, time out, I have to rescind my acceptance of the job because I can't find a home that's reasonable, sort of thing.
I'm somewhat discounting these wage studies because we're living in somewhat uncharted territory and times. We have now employees that are leaving, not going to law enforcement, but now employees at Avista and Kootenai Electric
Right.
are making more than, a deputy in the jail. So we're losing people to other industries
Yes.
because everybody is
Yes.
increasing their
Yes.
hourly wage. So
And-
it's just,
Right, and I did want to add that we do want to include the private sector. And the way we've designed our agreement and proposal with the Maribin, we could pull in private sector data.
I just don't know.
Could
how
or are going to?
Pardon?
Could or are going to?
It's up to us. I
Us.
think we should, truly, I recommend
Include
we
it.
do.
If you've got people that are leaving the profession, include private, absolutely.
Right, I mean, we have appraisers that can go work in the private industry, building inspectors, those type of positions.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they could pull. I think the more data we can get, the better prepared we'll be to look at the results and make some determinations from there.
The other thing that's interesting, when you said in the other category, it's fascinating because when you look at, I'll just take the first two, Bozeman and Missoula, you've got housing prices there that are comparable to ours. So from a study standpoint, it's good to include those two. Seattle, of course, is going to be higher, but Spokane Valley clearly needs to be there. But I think most of these make sense. Blaine is a bit of an outlier.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get much more expensive than Blaine, but if you want to, we're talking Sun Valley. I don't know what their median is. It's got to be up around $1 million, if not higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's $1 million,
Yeah.
985 or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's true of Meridian also.
Is Meridian up that high now?
Yeah. And it's in Region 3.
Okay, so okay.
And I would agree, Missoula and Bozeman, if people aren't coming here, that is the next place they go look, is Montana. I feel that
I think you're right.
that's what is attracting people here. And so they see it in Montana as well.
I think you've got a good cross-section here. I can't speak for everyone else, but it's a start.
Chris, I think that to the extent that we can keep it simple, this is probably the 7th one I've been through, and there's a couple points. You've heard me say this before. The first thing is that we've done them and we don't follow them. Well, you can disagree, but.
We followed them.
We followed the
This
19
board-
study, Dan.
Well, I would debate that with the police because we sat, with the sheriff's office, because we sat down there and we had to filter through a lot of information, some of which was disregarded, and the detention deputies came
Yeah,
up.
specifically detention.
So,
Well, even in patrol, Coeur d'Alene has a
Yeah.
5-year matrix, and what do we have?
9, are we?
so let's just assume that we are gonna follow it, okay? And that's good. And Leslie, I wasn't speaking, I was probably speaking more to some of the past ones than
Oh, yeah.
more recently. We weren't even close on some of the past ones. But we lose people specifically to Coeur d'Alene, Spokane Valley, Spokane City, And what I have seen happen with a lot of these studies in the past is we throw in these outliers, somebody, some places that are 300 miles away with a population that's not even close to ours, and it just waters things down. I mean, to the extent that we should keep it simple, I think we focus on what's local, and I know there's a lot more to it than that when they do these studies, but, we do lose people to the, we got a Union State back right up to us. And so to the extent that we focus on that market, that's the reality. That's the housing prices are the same. The wages, the relevancy of wages is probably a little bit more where it ought to be when you compare this local market. So that's my 2 cents worth. Every time we start going way out to Missoula or to, I've heard Burley in them, I've heard southern Idaho. I mean, it just doesn't pan out. And
Well, let me, to your point, Dan, let me ask Sylvia, can you do that? When you go to a Maribel, can you say, okay, and let's take the sheriff's organization. You guys might decide that, you know what, we don't need all this other stuff, Bozeman, Missoula, whatever it is, Tacoma. We want to focus on Post Falls, Spokane Valley. I don't know if there's another jurisdiction. Can you do that?
Yes.
Can you slice it that way?
They'll let us slice it in 2 pieces of the pie, only 2.
Do you want to do that?
Oh, yeah, no, I believe.
I mean,
that-
if you're not losing, well, you're not losing to Blaine for sure, but if you're not losing
None
to
of us
Missoula
are.
and Bozeman,
No,
None
that-
of us are, but
And-
we need to make sure that the cost of living and cost of labor
That's
is
the
what's
key.
included.
But again, our market is, we back up right to each other. I mean, the entities that I checked off was Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Spokane, Washington, Spokane Valley, and I'm looking hard for a number 5 if you need 5.
I
But-
need some counties.
What about Bonner? I mean, what
Yeah,
we
you
do
need
Yeah,
some
we
counties.
need Bonner.
I mean,
Yeah.
some counties.
we have the mandated services cities don't have.
I mean, if you want to get a county that's comparable,
Spokane
Ada or
County.
Canyon.
I'm sorry?
Bonner
Or
County.
Canyon.
Ada.
Yeah,
You may not be losing
and
people
Canyon.
there, but from a cost of living perspective,
that's
right?
Now,
sensible.
keep in mind, remember with the last wage study, we had more cities, and then we had state of Washington and state of Idaho. And you guys didn't like the information we got for detention officer. We didn't have a lot of county data because they use correctional officer. And if you look at the U.S. Department of Labor statistics, when they compare detention and corrections, they're pretty comparable. So we need counties, enough counties included to get data for our detention staff in all county positions, because a lot of our positions are just county relevant, not
So what if
city.
you go Ada, Canyon, and Spokane?
Spokane, yeah.
I see
Canyon.
relevance in that. If
Okay.
you're looking, apples to apples with counties, yeah. Bonner, they're, I don't know, what are they, like a third of our size? I'm not.
Yeah, they're about 47,000.
47,000, but they pay pretty decent
pay-
You
wages.
took the words out of my mouth. They pay
So-
better than we do.
Yeah.
I mean, they're our neighbors.
Yeah, so,
And their cost of housing is very comparable.
yeah,
Right.
so I think Bonner is
Okay.
relevant.
So
you know.
Bonner, Ada, Canyon, Spokane Valley, Spokane County, and Post Falls, Coeur d'Alene.
There you go.
That seems fair to me.
There
We
you
say
go.
Spokane Valley in there? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
That's a,
I like
one
those two.
comment though, too, on the, when we put the state in there, just for the record,
Uh-huh.
we agreed to the state, but we were more focused on the patrol wages, and we weren't looking at correction
Right,
when we
right.
picked that. So that's how that happened. And just, we did submit some information that cleared that up, but I don't think it took us anywhere. So anyway, I think what you said, Leslie, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
What about, so you just about have all of your top 5 largest counties. What about Bonneville?
You're talking Idaho Falls, no.
No?
No.
Okay. Okay.
No.
So then the city of Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Spokane Valley,
Spokane City, right?
and the city of Spokane.
I think that's it.
You got Spokane County.
And so counties I had Ada, Bonner, Canyon, and Spokane County. Were those what you guys have?
Ada, Bonner, Canyon, and Spokane, yeah.
Spokane.
Yep.
Then Coeur d'Alene, City of Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Spokane Valley, and City of Spokane.
Yep.
And that's not going to be enough to discount the highest and the lowest, correct?
Probably not. So we do average.
Averages.
So just so everyone knows, we'd have to do average, because you'd want to be consistent throughout your study, whether we use average or median. So we'll have to use average most likely.
So Steve, are you advocating this for the whole county, or are you advocating for the sheriffs to be separated out and then general pay plan, open it up further?
I'm advocating that this works for the treasurer's office.
Okay, so then,
Okay, and then whatever private sector data they can get within these locations is okay, right?
yeah,
Okay,
because,
perfect.
as you pointed out, Bob, you lose
So-
people to
The
private
two
sector.
deaf cops couldn't hear what Steve said. so.
Steve said he wants what works for the treasurer's office.
Basically, what we just, I think, discussed, those entities works for the treasurer's office.
Works
So
for us too.
So if we go with the HR recommendation, which was regions 1, 3, 6, and, I'm sorry, 1, 3, 6, 7, and other, that should pretty much satisfy the rest of us.
But we
That's
took,
plenty.
we took 6 out, right, Bonneville?
Well, you don't have them all now, in terms of the whole region, but you would have
You're right,
representation
Bill.
from some of them.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, you would have representation from Region 1,
Go ahead,
3,
okay?
and 7. What about the state of Washington?
Can I,
I mean, not the state of Washington, state of Idaho,
The whole state?
the state
Yeah,
as an
state
entity,
agencies.
yes,
Oh, for an entity.
yeah.
I will
No.
tell you, the state of Washington pays less than probably half of the counties in Washington pay. And part of that is because their offices are located in Thurston County, which has a lower cost of living than if they were located in Seattle. But if you were to use the state of Washington, you would be skewing your data down.
Question, could we do like 1 and 7 and add, because you said we could do we have to pick one region and then we can pick up to 5?
No, you could have picked all 7 regions. And you can pick all of those cities and counties in that region, or as we're doing, we're hand selecting which ones.
What do you guys suggest that we do?
Select.
I like the hand select idea.
Yeah, yeah, and that's pretty much what you've done. Was there something you wanted to add, Jennifer?
Oh, I think it's
Anything?
perfect. I mean, we're losing people here, but we do want to see what Ada and Canyon, because Ada, the housing market's good there too. And Bonner does pay more, even on the county level, I know that.
Will this get us any airport data?
Bonner,
Bonner will?
City of Boise would be the
City
other
of
one.
Boise, yeah, yeah, because it's metropolitan.
Yeah.
Do we want to add Boise? City of Boise?
We probably should, huh?
I would,
Okay,
Because if nothing else, from a cost of living comparison, because
Okay.
they're pretty much comparable to us.
yeah, because you're doing Ada County,
Uh-huh.
why not the municipality? Okay, so what I show is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 locations?
Go through them one more time.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. City of Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Spokane Valley, Spokane, the city of Spokane, and the
Uh-huh.
city of Boise.
Uh-huh.
Counties are Ada, Bonner, Canyon, and Spokane County.
That should
Ada,
work.
Bonner, Canyon, and
Ada, Bonner, Canyon.
Spokane.
County.
Ada, Bonner, Canyon, Spokane.
So we have pretty much the components of of Washington that just 30 minutes away from us, west of us, so
So when would this commence
October 1st.
and complete?
It'll take Ameriben about 2 months to collect the data and start creating some reports for us.
Okay.
And then after that, we can do our analysis. And one of the nice things is they'll strategize with us on how to address some of the discrepancies that we may see. So that'll be really nice to have them do that.
Fair enough.
So I would say maybe February, we can start maybe presenting some data to the elected officials. Just to show you, here's what the market said, the market we selected, and here's what the market is saying about our position.
Which is about a few months before we start the fiscal '23 budget.
Which is
So,
good timing.
I guess my concern, though, they might be offering all this and paying all this, but if they're not getting employees, then
That's a good
how's
point.
that gonna help us?
There is a staffing shortage. It's unbelievable. I was watching about the truck drivers
Yeah. My husband-
on the news
my husband's dealing with that
yesterday,
right
and it's just amazing. We're gonna have a paper shortage, they're saying, and just ability to
Better
get
get to
products
Costco and
into
get some toilet
restaurants.
paper.
It just
Or we can just
I
go to
think I go
Worcester.
back to drawing from other industries, just like.
Yeah,
you
we're-
know,
Yeah.
we're
You know, the
local
other,
people who already live here,
Yeah.
drawing from
yeah,
existing industries.
Just one thing, the only thing of having like 5 cities versus 4 counties is like the jail and the courts. They're not gonna have that in the city. That's just something to think out. You're gonna have less to pull from in those areas, certain parts of the county, I think, but.
Do you have a recommendation of another county we could pull in?
Not necessarily, it's just something to think of when we start pulling data for things that aren't mandated in the cities that are mandated in counties.
You don't think Ada and Canyon would be comparable as far as housing?
No, I do.
She's just
But
saying
I'm
it's
just
not
saying
a
like
big
a,
enough
I'm-
sample.
I'm thinking like in the courts, you know, is there something equivalent where something maybe in the city of Boise is gonna pay more that's not jail related or court related? So they have 4 points, maybe from Ada, Canyon, Spokane, and Bonner County for those positions versus now you're having 5 for positions that exist within cities and counties, which there may be a higher end for that. And maybe I'm completely off on that, but I'm
Yeah,
just thinking.
I don't think you need to worry about that, do you? Yeah, because they'll find matches here from different organizations, and it won't be like consistent
Okay.
across all our positions. It's really about them looking at our job descriptions and then comparing them to our market.
okay, fair enough.
All right, so,
We have an action item. Are you ready?
hey, will you name them again?
Yes,
Do you
I'll
mind
name
naming
'em.
so we
Okay,
can
here
just
we
make
go.
sure? Thank you.
All right, I move that we use the following markets for the next wage study for FY '23 implementation. Bonner County, Ada County, Canyon County, Spokane County, City of Coeur d'Alene, City of Post Falls, City of Boise, City of Spokane, Washington, City of Spokane Valley, Washington.
Second.
Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Chairman Fillios,
Aye, and the motion is carried for the selection of the locations for what would be the fiscal '22 wage study.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Second and final item, and this is just an update, and I'll ask the sheriff to jump in as well, on the crisis standards of care, which is, I guess, the order, if you want to call it that the governor issued last week. And so, based on the sheriff's recommendation, we held a meeting last Thursday. At that meeting, I didn't get a count, but we must have had maybe 20 people. And represented in that meeting were Kootenai Health, Panhandle Health, Dr. Keene was there, Sheriff, Undersheriff were there, Leslie and I were there. Am I missing anybody, guys? There might have been a couple of other entities, but that was pretty much OEM and IOEM, that is to say, Idaho Office of Emergency Management. And there were a few action items that came out of that meeting. I'll ask the sheriff maybe to summarize. I took one of them, and just as a cursory overview, basically what the problem comes down to is that it's not just a shortage of facilities, if you will, let's call it beds, but a staff shortage as well, that is to say, trained medical staff. And so one of the action items that I took was to contact the CEO of Northwest Specialty and see if they could free up beds. The theory being that since Kootenai Health has COVID-trained medical staff, if they could transfer non-COVID patients to Northwest Specialty and free up those beds, then we have at least some level of remedy initially. Anyway, so I did speak with Rick Rasmussen. What he told me was that they've been in communication with Kootenai Health, and they actually sent 20 staff over to Kootenai Health. By the way, Bob, I relayed this yesterday to Tiffany. But he says they're in constant communication, and he has no problem cooperating. But that's what I know from my action item to date. I left it with Tiffany, and I said, if you need me to do any more, let me know. And again, I don't know the politics between the hospitals, but that's what I can add from my perspective. Bob, you want to take it?
Yeah, so another action item was coordination of the region's urgent cares to see if we can't have some sort of a organized structure of maybe COVID patients and treating and what have you. So that was an action item, and also the revamping of the CDA Press's local chart as it pertains to COVID numbers. So that also was an action item to see if we can change that. But I will add that this particular cycle is real. I mean, it's significant and very, very real. This our organization has been impacted by it. We have had several spouses, children, not children as far as adolescent age. I'm talking about grown children in their 30s and 40s that are being impacted by this. So the problem is real. We're doing everything that we can from an emergency operations center standpoint. We have resolved every request that we received from Kootenai Health. The last one was a generator that they needed, and we secured that for them. But yeah, the problem is real. Those were the other two action items. So I would suggest if you're in a vulnerable, high-risk category, to do everything that you can to reduce the risk. But it's a real problem.
Sheriff, whatever came out of the situation with EMS, do you recall?
That's going to be coordinated with Tiffany, and as of right now, that's kind of a larger complex than your action item, so
Okay.
probably hear something on that
Okay.
this week.
Does anyone know the governor, he had an order of opening of the 3 clinics for the antibody treatment, how that clinic is operating and doing in Kootenai County or Coeur d'Alene?
I don't know. I just know that Rasmussen is also helping with that
That is
situation
correct.
too.
Go ahead, Doc.
Warren Keene, for the record, that was in the paper as being opened at the fairgrounds between Heritage Health and Northwest Specialty Hospital, providing staff and running it. And they even had a number in there to get a reservation because you have to be referred by your physician. And so to my knowledge, it's up and running.
I heard they can accommodate about 48 appointments a day for that care, so
Okay.
hopefully that really helps.
I don't know that I have anything further to add at this point. Sheriff, I think we're okay for now.
Yeah, it's significant. I mean, if you have risk factors, I highly suggest that you minimize your risk factors by social distancing and washing your hands. And if you feel more comfortable with wearing a mask, wear a mask. If you don't, that's okay too. But this is a very significant wave that they're seeing. I mean, fatigue factor is setting in over there, and they're putting 19-year-olds and 30-year-olds in double plastic body bags, so it's pretty significant.
Dr. Keene? As
Well,
a medical
I've been
professional.
the vaccine guy.
Okay, go right ahead.
And I'm going to tell you that vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. It's a safe vaccine. It works. It's 95% proved to give you less of an illness, and so you don't die or go in the ICU.
At last count, I guess last week, they had, 115 patients, and was it about 37 in ICU?
Yeah.
Obviously, that changes day to day, but
And in the paper today, it was 97 in the hospital and 31,
So
I
it's
believe, in
declined.
ICU.
What's the updates that they're gonna change, you think, in the Coeur d'Alene Press that you're
Yeah,
looking for?
we'd like to see different measurables because we've kind of got used to the previous ones. And so I think that a different set of measurables to let people know that, hey, this is really more significant this time, would be a start.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay then. Anything else? Nothing? Is there any public comment?
I have a public comment,
Go ahead.
just to bring something to your attention, that if situation gets any more dire in our communication center, that I will likely request a meeting for the mayors of the cities, for you and the commissioners to attend this, but now we're losing people.
We're talking 911?
Yeah, 911 center. We're losing people that are putting in a resignation because they're working too much overtime and now are taking jobs for $10 an hour less somewhere else because the fatigue factor is impacting them. We're having 911 services respond to 911 for employees now. So, we have reconfigured our software system to put calls on hold. But it's if it gets more, I have deputies, I have animal control officers working over at 911. I've got patrol deputies working the jail. I don't know what else we can do.
When you shift those resources to get people into E911, do you have to do any training?
Oh yeah.
I was just gonna say, okay.
Yeah. On the law side, it takes about 3 weeks to get them up and running. Because it's not one screen anymore. I don't know if you've been out there, yeah, but it's fairly automated now. So, but yeah, we're asking for volunteers from our stakeholder agencies to send people down there. It's pretty significant. So, as of right now, meeting's not called, but in the future, if it requires it, we might have to get everybody together and say there will be a compromise in phone service as it pertains to EMS and law enforcement.
Are those backgrounds as intensive as patrol and detention?
Yeah, and the background, it's more the training. It's to get somebody trained up that has no background in it whatsoever. It's about a 6-month process.
Were you referring to?
We whittled that back from a year.
Background checks. Yeah.
Yeah, so
There are many 911 centers across the country that their training for dispatcher is actually longer than some police training, and it's a year. We've cut that back down to 6 months, and we think we get it done right. But Bob's right, it's an arduous process. It takes time.
and they have access to all of your law enforcement systems. So yeah, they do have to have a
Just to
clean background.
clarify, you made the comment that you have reconfigured your,
Yeah,
so you're gonna put 911 calls on hold.
we have prepared the software to do that now, just in case we have to, but we've prepared the software to do that in the event that we have to. Because see,
What
Here at our
possibly-
center here
what
are-
possibly would the message be?
their call takers here are also dispatchers. So we don't have call takers and dispatchers. We have our dispatchers are call takers. So, yeah, and we are looking at, making, maybe call takers. And then if it's an emergency, you get routed somewhere else. And if it's just a non-emergency call, we're exploring all options. But we have deputies working in all areas, the jail and in 911.
So for call takers, could you use search and rescue or OEM volunteers?
It's no longer just sitting in front of one screen. It's a fairly
But just for a
complex-
call taker instead of a
Yeah,
dispatcher?
it's still a pretty arduous. It'll take about
I did
three,
it
4
at
weeks,
18
yeah.
years old. I mean,
I said the same thing. And I said, why does it take so long? But if you sit down there and say, hey, you know what? We used to get people up and running in 4 days, but the call taking, was that the tablet you had to write on, or how did you do it?
Cypress, no, it was Cypress Police in California.
I'm kidding,
no.
no.
Yeah.
It's totally changed.
It was chisels. It wasn't.
Yeah, it's totally changed, but we're pursuing that avenue also.
Okay.
So when they're taking calls, they're also qualifying, aren't they? Making an assessment
Oh, yeah.
as to the risk level.
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. Yep, so, just because that had a nexus to what we were talking about as far as, wage and fatigue factor because of as much overtime as everybody's working over there, but we are sending bodies over there. It's just
It's unfortunate that the typical call center, private sector doesn't translate.
Oh, no.
Right.
That's true.
right.
Well, the labor shortage, not to mention the stress factor. I mean, yesterday we had a meeting or a conference call with Public Defense Commission. There's a nationwide shortage of defense attorneys for indigent defense. It's seemingly hitting every sector of the economy.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anything else? Any public comment? Hearing none, I have 9:44. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.